My name is Tu Mayan. I'm 13 years old. I work in the salt field. I pound the ground, collect the salt, and carry it to the storeroom. I earn between 50 cents and 75 cents a day.
After my father died, I dropped out of school and came to work at the construction site to earn money to support my family. I was putting the soil into the mixing machine. The soil was stuck, so I tried to push it in. Suddenly, the machine caught my arm inside. One of my brothers ran over to grab me, and another came to stop the machine.
They shovel salt for hours on end in an unforgiving sun. Carry back-breaking loads of bricks to feed a seemingly insatiable construction boom. Live lives confined to the daily routines of a rubber plantation. Navigate the dangerous waters off Cambodia's coast. Or sit quietly, endlessly peeling shrimp or shelling crab. They compete with adults to pull the heavy loads of tourists and traders at border towns. Frequently, they suffer abuse and overwork for little or no pay in the often hidden world of a child domestic labourer. More than 1.5 million children work in Cambodia, and at least 250,000 of them in the worst forms of child labour. The numbers are shocking, but eliminating child labour is the challenge that the Royal Government of Cambodia, with support from the International Labour Organization, has set itself and has begun to tackle in earnest.
The lack of access to education and poverty are inextricably interlinked. It's a vicious cycle. Where there are poor families, they are unable to send their children to school. Because they are unable to send the children to school, the children remain uneducated, unskilled, and are forced, when they become adults, to continue to work at low wages in unskilled labor.
When I had money, I went to school. When I didn't, I couldn't. Then the situation of my family got worse. And the teacher said that if you can't come regularly, don't come at all.
If we can sell all our flowers in one evening, then we can go to school for the whole day. If we don't, then we have to sell the rest of the flowers in the afternoon.
Cambodia is currently experiencing rapid economic growth, and the need for skilled and unskilled labour is essential to its sustainability. But the very growth which is driving the economy forward also makes huge demands on the population and the already limited human resources available. In Cambodia, more than half the children between the ages of 8 and 15 are involved in some form of child work. This cuts short their childhoods and severely limits their chances of a better life through access to education. It also slows the broader national poverty reduction and development goals of the government.
So poverty leads to child labor, and child labor leads to poverty. So it's a vicious circle, and the cycle has to be broken somewhere. And the only way it can be broken is through putting in place a basket of measures, where involving not only the government, but also the employers, also the trade unions, also the workers, also civil society organizations, the teachers, the education system, the parents themselves, the children themselves. It has to be a social mobilization from the top to the bottom, across the country.
14-year-old Eng Chat has already been working full-time for 3 years. Chat's family is keenly aware that the money he contributes each month to the family makes an important difference to his family's well-being. It's a difference that comes at a price to his limited education as well as his safety. Accidents involving underage workers are common, and without any health insurance, the family's further at risk of becoming destitute if he was seriously injured or worse.
When my father was alive, it was never difficult like now. After my father died, I had to work at construction site to earn money. I carry bricks and tighten the middle bars. Being so high up to tighten the middle bars makes me very scared. I have no choice but to continue.
In the construction sector, you really don't have to be skilled. You don't even have to be semi-skilled. An unskilled child can work as a helper in the construction sector. So there's an attraction for work. There is a demand for it. And of course, there's a supply.
The government's identified some specific worst forms of child labour. These include construction work and working in salt production, brick making or harvesting rubber, as child porters or child domestic servants. Yet 1 in 6 children in Cambodia are employed in these areas. But removing children from these and other worst forms of child labour only works if they can be returned quickly to education and alternative sources of income for their families developed. To meet this challenge, the Cambodian government and the ILO's TBP support project has been actively working on long-term solutions. The target is to end the worst forms of child labour in all its forms by 2016.
The ILO pilot projects here in Poipat has taken us one step ahead. We have withdrawn 1,600 children from working in the worst forms of child labor. Those who had previously dropped out of school, we have been able to send them back to informal schools initially. They receive meals 2 times a day through a program supported by the NGO Don Bosco. After 3 months building up their confidence, we have to send them back into public school system through the support of the ILO.
With the support of the government, employers groups, business organisations and trade unions have begun developing and implementing action programmes. These combat child labour and at the same time take steps to ensure that any income lost by taking children out of work is replaced by other means.
The elimination of child labor is all our duty. Mobilizing our stakeholders is the preliminary target for elimination of child labor. With good cooperation, Ministry have promoted policy, legal framework, and create the mechanism and structure sufficiently to combat the worst form of child labor in Cambodia. In the recent years, Cambodians have removed children from hazardous work and worst form of child labor for them to have opportunity for education, vocational training, and job creation.
The secret to tackling child labour is to get people to accept their responsibilities for tackling it. Everyone has responsibilities. Government, national and local, employers, workers, families, they all do. And because of the ILO's perceived neutrality and credibility, we're able to get people to accept those responsibilities. I think it has to happen at the national level when you're setting laws, setting policies, national framework for action. And there we have mechanisms for bringing together all of the different players. But it's not enough to have the government's trust. You need to be able to work with local governments, with employers, with trade unions, with a whole range of partners, because they all have a part to play.
Continuing and sustaining efforts to eliminate the worst forms of child labour will not only require the commitment of the Cambodian government, but also coordinated investments from the many donors that currently support Cambodia's development needs. With continued commitment, new donor support and the sustained efforts of programme implementers and stakeholders, Cambodia is moving closer to eliminating the worst forms of child labour and reducing child labour overall by 2016.
The goal of 2016 will be achieved and can be achieved because I think conditions in Cambodia is just appropriate and just ripe for it. We need the will, the government has the will, we need the mechanism and the resources for it. And if we can have it, 2016 will be achieved in Cambodia.